Joining me from here in Washington to discuss these protests is Nicole Roussell. She is the National Staff Organizer of the Act Now to Stop War and End Racism, or ANSWER Coalition. Thank you, Nicole, for joining us today. First of all,
thank you so much for having me.
Yes, what tangible results do you think we can see from demonstrations like this? I mean, how do you think this will help combat the overall message about anti-Asian racism and violence?
So today there were over 60 cities nationwide, as your reporter was talking about, over 60 cities nationwide. That's huge, with multinational, multiracial coalitions of Arab Americans, of Black Americans, of Asian Americans, of every color of American coming together to say we can't have this. This is unacceptable. This kind of anti-Asian violence is completely, it's racist, it's disgusting, and we cannot have this. And what's happening, there's been a long time that racism has existed here in the United States against Asian Americans. We've seen the Chinese Exclusion Act from 1882, but as the reporter talked about, the internment camps against the Japanese, which were really concentration camps, and a lot of them were citizens of the United States. But what we're seeing more recently is this anti-China rhetoric from Donald Trump and the continued policies from President Obama to President Trump, and now with President Biden, of really increasing the war drive against China. And this China bashing is absolutely responsible for the huge increase in hate crimes against Asian Americans and the violence that we're seeing really spread around the country.
Nicole, I've read a few articles about some of the challenges this anti-Asian hate movement faces, particularly differences in opinion of the proper approach to take. Some say, we need to be reactive each time there's an attack against Asian Americans, and others say we need to take a step back to understand this issue in a broader context. Would you agree that there's sort of a difference in opinion going on in the movement?
I think it's incredibly clear that people are outraged, that people are incredibly upset, people are angry, and people have every right to be angry. They have every right to be upset. This kind of racist violence is disgusting, and it has no place in any sort of country that calls itself a democracy. So, it's very clear that there needs to be a lot of steps taken. There needs to be, immediate steps taken, like making sure that there is actual education about the history of Asian American violence here in this country. And there needs to be much bigger steps taken, too. It seems very obvious that the really disgusting and racist rhetoric that is used very constantly against Asian Americans and has been for decades and decades and even longer, all of that needs to be addressed. We've heard that kind of anti-Asian rhetoric and that kind of war drive against China from both administrations, or excuse me, from both political parties here in the United States, and all of that needs to be addressed as one, not just one piecemeal reform here and one piecemeal reform here. And I think that it's clear that here in Washington, D.C., we just finished up a really strong demonstration in Washington's Chinatown, and so many groups came together, and I know it's happening around the country, to agree that there must be large and meaningful steps taken to stop this kind of really racist violence and killing that has been happening.
Nicole, one step, I think, among Asian communities is this long-held mentality of being passive, to not speak up about these issues. I have personal issues with that in my own family, to just keep your head down and just plow through. Will this momentum, do you think, motivate some in the Asian community to change that mentality that has kind of existed for a while now?
We saw, I'll just say this number again because it is incredibly impressive, that there were more than 60 cities today. Like, to step back and think about that, around this country, 60 cities, some of which, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta, but some you've never heard of that are standing up and are saying, we're not going to take this anymore. There's people from all sorts of different communities, but absolutely from various, Asian communities who are coming out today and saying, we're standing up, we're fighting back, and we will see change, because we have to see change to save our own lives. We have to see change. We have to bring together all of the different communities of the working class here in the United States to make changes for all of us. The way to bring everyone together is through real solidarity of showing up for each other. We had a number of anti-police terror organizations here in Washington, D.C. that primarily focus on the police terror that happens to Black D.C. residents. But they showed up today and said, this is the same issue. We have to work together and we have to fight back.
Nicole Roussell with the ANSWER Coalition. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your perspective today.
an honor to be here. Thank you so much.